As let's start again. As the festive fixtures draw to a dramatic conclusion, Liverpool top the tree. Forest, swiftly behind them. Just like what was it, Sean? The 70s or the 80s? Liverpool top, Forest swiftly behind.
That would have been the late 80s,
Late 80s.
No, late 70s, early 80s, that would have been, sorry.
There we go. Rolling back the years, and apart from that, the Premier League is frantic and rather bemusing at the best of times. Welcome back to our Premier League roundup show. We've taken our Christmas break. Sean, did you have a very Merry Christmas?
It wasn't bad, mate. Yeah, not too bad at all. I'm feeling miserable and almost ready to get back to work now.
Feeling miserable. Get back to work. There we go.
I'm labouring through the days now.
Fair enough. Hello to everybody joining us as well. Michael, hope you well. Evening. Can we improve next year in 2024? Next year in 2024 we conceded 77 goals. Thanks for starting it off on a bright note, Michael. I hope you are well. Larry as well. Hope everything is well with you. We're going to start at the King Power. Well, finally, it seems Manchester City have broken the curse, and they lauded their manager at the full-time whistle as he went over towards the away end, and they sit 6th or 7th, I think, in the Premier League, obviously out of the title race now, battling for, Sean, what do you think they're battling for? Champions League, you'd assume?
Well, I tipped them to be 4th in the show the other day, didn't I? I thought,
yeah,
but that was more or less by default because I didn't fancy any of the rest, to be quite honest with you. I didn't see the game. I seen that Haaland turned it on a little bit. He was given a bit of space. I don't think Van Nistelrooy's form has been great since he's gone there.
No.
I did see a stat about they conceded the most amount of shots on goal since he's been out of any team in the league. I'm assuming that carried on versus City. You'd have thought so. Yeah, I wouldn't expect overnight improvement from City. They'll probably get 1 or 2 in this window coming up. Like we don't see a lot of business in the January window anymore, do we? It's that sort of. I think every year you sort of hear rumours. Oh, is it worth having? Should we get rid of it? Because no one really spends a lot. Maybe a few loans come in. They might get a couple in, chuck a couple out, but they've got a long way to find a bit of form, and they need to find it in the Champions League as well because they won't want to. Well, they're not in the top 8 at the moment, nowhere near, I don't think. So they're looking like a possible playoff unless they manage to win the last 2 or 3 games. So, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it, but obviously they've needed a win. But like my own team, when you're on a bad run, you need to get a win from somewhere, and they've managed to get it at the right sort of ground.
Yeah, you mentioned Leicester there and Van Nistelrooy for a second. I mean, yeah, he's been there just a little under a month now, and he's registered 1 win against West Ham. But apart from that, that was his first game. That was his new manager bounce, but it swiftly evaporated after that. Drew to Brighton, got battered against Newcastle, got battered against Wolves, lost to Liverpool, and then lost to Manchester City. So, yeah, I mean, they had a slim chance of staying up. It seems like that is withering and diminishing by the week, Sean, and it's just bridging that gap even more between the 3 that are there and the rest, really.
Yeah, did you reel off then? Liverpool, Man City, who else was in that little spell?
They lost to Liverpool, they lost to Man City, they lost to Newcastle and Wolves quite convincingly.
That's not the easiest of runs, in all fairness. No. So that tells me they must have a couple coming up. We just repeat ourselves really. That them bottom sort of few, when they play each other, they need to make sure they get the wins. So when Leicester play in Ipswich and the Southampton, they'll all be looking at them games where the fellow promoter sides from last year, they're the games that they all have to try and get a win. Points aren't really enough when you play a poor side down there. But you'd like to think they've got an easier run coming up with those tough looking ones they've just had.
Yeah, absolutely. And as for Man City, well, fighting for those European spots now, and it'll be interesting to see where they head next season, in what direction, and whether they can get back to it. But it's not a quick overnight reset or fix, I think, for Man City. But yeah, a post-mortem needed there for sure. Now, I saw some of your comments in the build-up to this, and you said Tottenham wouldn't win. Once again, Sean was right. Spurs 2, Wolves 2. It's a recurring theme. You're usually right, Sean. You were right again.
Yeah, Oh, don't know. What do you want to know? Like, do you want me to cover the game, or do you want me to
Go on.
dissect why we might be having a wobble, or what? You tell
All
me.
of it. All of it. You got all the time you want. Go on.
Well, I'm not. I like to think I'm not a delusional fan, so I'll say it quite honestly. We are suffering a lot with injuries. The players that are out there are clearly, and this is evident against Wolves in the last 15 minutes, suffering from fatigue, overplaying. Now, we've had 5 hamstring injuries at the moment, and a lot of these fatigue players, you could argue, have been overplayed through the season when we had a fully fit squad. So whether you can point a couple of those back to the manager or not, whether it's coincidence, I'll let you make your own assumption there. But what is definitely happening is we're showing lots of effort. We're throwing a team on the field, bandaged up quite heavily. I think Draguzan played at the weekend. He limped off an ankle injury about 3 days ago. He shouldn't have played. That was evident. We lost another one to a hamstring left back at the weekend. We ended the last game of 2024 with a left-hand side of Reguilon and Timo Werner. That's nowhere near acceptable. Do you know what I mean? That's... If a team had that 3 years ago, you might find it acceptable. But times moved on from that. Evident of a player. Go back to the start of the season quickly when it was evident we were trying to build a young squad. Okay, I could understand the Timo Werner loan because it was an experienced player to help give these youngsters a bit of time to come through. We signed Odebert, a talented winger. We've got quite a few other young youngsters there, which could be very good in a couple of years. But then we had Son, who started. But because these younger players got injured and Werner's not very good, Son's had to play every week. As a fan base, believe it or not, because you probably haven't watched Tottenham enough, and probably a lot of your people listen to me now haven't watched him enough. Son's contract's up in the summer, okay? As a fan base, I think he's the same age as Mo Salah. I think they're both 32, 33. As a fan base now, a majority of our fan base are almost calling for us not to renew his contract.
Really?
Well, due to mainly fatigue, whatever reason, whether it's age catching up on you, if it's overplaying, he's looked shot to bits for about 2 months. Like, if you played him once a month, he'd run at you and have a brilliant game. I can't remember who he was class against. He scored 2 against someone. Oh, I think it was only Southampton, and they subbed them off after an hour, and we were like 4-0 up. Okay, he's struggling so bad for confidence. You can see he's struggling to beat a man. Do you know what I mean? So that is an example of where we had these youngsters who probably had 4 options on the left wing, and now we're down to Werner's been so bad he's been criticised by the manager. But down to Son, who can't hardly run, and the youngsters who are all injured. Do you know what I mean? So that's where we are as a squad. Whether that's Ange's fault for overplaying him at the start of the season, not bringing these in and out. We had an option in midfield, Archie Gray, who's been very good this season, but we've been playing him at centre back and been playing him at right back now and again when Porro's needed a rest. Bear in mind we've had Jed Spence, who hasn't come into the team until about 3 weeks ago, when he could have played at right back all through the season.
And then he got sent off, didn't he?
Yeah, he got sent off, but he's been playing quite well when he's come in. But he's come in mid-December, almost when the players are done. So I've got a lot of sympathy for Ange with players missing. It's not it's fact. You know what I mean? It is fact.
Yeah.
We're set up a certain way. We've got four defenders out, the goalie out. Keep getting Bentancur suspended. Do you know what I mean? We got Solanke up front running for free. Drop 3 players, but sometimes reasons why you got these fatigue and injuries, and I just wonder whether it's linked. And it's against Wolves. I'll be honest, it was a shocking game. It was a bad game of football. Do you know what I mean? It was noticeable after about. I will say one thing because Ange had his knockers about not changing. He did change it. The fullbacks didn't tuck in. They were going more overlapping out wide. We weren't chucking men forward so much. When we were clearly getting leggy, we sort of sat back a little bit to try and ride out the win. They got good goal.
What did you make of Wolves, Sean? Because they've had an impressive start with the new manager. What did you make of them?
Not a great deal. It wasn't a good game. Cunha, probably our best player, went off at halftime injured.
Right.
He was a bit lively. I'll be honest. It was a game to look like between 2 teams that were struggling. I didn't notice the team getting a big new manager bump. we just noticed he looked very leggy. Like I think it went on for about 100 minutes because of injury time. The last 15, we had a couple of counter attacks, but we were noticeably struggling to get bodies up the field. There's Maddison comes in and out the squad. He's struggling to fit him in, really get the balance right. He come on, did nothing. Bergval's and other youngsters come on in and out. Do you know what I mean? I think we've had a bit of bad luck with the injuries, so we couldn't rotate a couple. But then he hasn't rotated when he could. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Do you know what I mean? And
so he's got a bit of a predicament here because he hasn't used the players that he could have used earlier on in the season. They're coming back to bite him now when they're all getting injured. Yeah, I mean, the injuries, as you said earlier, it's factual. It is, there is concerns there, and it does slightly annoy me to an extent where you've got all the media who harp on about because Arsenal have got one player injured or poor Saka because he's injured. They don't shut up about that. It's like nobody ever gets injuries, right? All they harp on about is Saka, and the fact is that there are a lot of injuries at Tottenham, and
it's not like I said though. One part of me saying it's bad luck. 2 examples, our best 2 centre backs. It's probably one of the better centre back partnerships in the league, in my opinion. They both returned versus Chelsea, literally out of nowhere. I think if you go back and read a few of the tweets they put down, I hope this doesn't backfire. They both got injured in the game. They both come off. Do you know what I mean? I'm thinking, and a lot of our fans slate our medical team. Did they advise Ange that they were fit? Did Ange just listen to the players that they were fit? Did he see it as a huge game that they couldn't lose at home to an arch rival in Chelsea? I don't know. An example for the not rotating at the start. And I noticed players had issues with dogs barking. I noticed players had issues with managing in the past and something might have gone on. But when the Europa League squad was named, he named 3 goalkeepers and not Jed Spence. Jed Spence can't play in the Europa League. So the only time he could kick a ball was in the Premier League. And he hasn't. I think he's come on as a sub for about, in injury time, of 5 minutes here and there, out of position at left back a bit. Okay? So that's an example of when Pedro Porro, he's great going forward, he's looked like he's needing a rest defending-wise. So I've got sympathy with the injuries, but he's overplayed players. So it's a real tricky one.
Some tricky times at Tottenham, that is for sure. Right, let's take some of your comments before we move on. Farhead, the Greek bloke is fast becoming our worst player in history, signed on a permanent contract. I'm putting my faith into Jake taking over as player manager and being the new centre-back. Well, I mean, I wouldn't back myself in too many scenarios as a centre-back, but it can't get much worse than the clowns we've got there currently. So, I mean, you never know. You honestly never know. Lily, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I hope you are well. Mavropanos is dreadful. Very true. Very true. I hope you are well, Larry. Oh yeah, did someone say Saka's injured? No one's mentioned it. It's not been mentioned at all. So honestly, the tears have been painful. Oh, he's injured. Yeah, players get injuries. That's what happens. Apparently they want Kudus as cover for Saka. Why would you want to go there as number 2? Well, I mean, if we can get anything we can from him at the moment, Kudus. But no. We'll see. We will see. But Emerson is not the answer at left wing. Square pegs, round holes, week in, week out. Ronnie, big up, lads. Ange out. There we go. Is weekly Ange out. Right, we won't get into any more of that. Yeah, we can swap Ange for Floppategi if you want. Wolves had 80% of the ball in the last 20 minutes. Rubbish. Or you could have Moyes. How about that, Sean?
He's probably right about the Wolves, but I didn't mind that because clearly we were knackered. We were absolutely shattered. You could see it. He's obviously sitting back and soaking up a 2-1 win, which all these Muppet pundits have been crying out for him to do. It's just not his way. He tried it. Do you know what I mean? And we almost let him have the ball. But yeah, it's worth a go, I suppose.
Next up, we're going to go to the team currently chasing the league leaders. We're going to go to Goodison Park, Everton 0, Nottingham Forest 2. Nobody's really mentioned them, to be honest. All of a sudden, they're second. I mean, they're not getting the media coverage. Obviously, maybe people focusing on Man City being crap and Man United being crap and all the rest of it. But Nottingham Forest, who were like 16th last season, are currently second going into 2025, Sean.
Yeah, we played them the other day at their place. And we looked a lot. I thought we were marginally the better team versus them, to be quite honest, but we just conceded a very predictable goal, which we conceded, one of those sort of picked apart counter attacks. No one's seen it coming, did they? I think they're on a brilliant run. I read that Everton fans said that they were just faster and sharper at everything at Goodison. It's strange, isn't it? Like, I think people are saying this year's Leicester. I don't think they're going to win it, but it's just whether they can hang on. I would actually like to see them hang on and get a European spot of sorts.
Absolutely.
I think we quite at the halfway stage just about now, something like that.
I think so. Exactly that. 19 games played. Yeah.
I think they're sort of the opposite of what my team is a little bit, and probably your team. When they're out on the field, they look like they got an extra man with an extra bit of oomph behind them, extra bit of leg work. They're working together. That usually means the club and the trainer are in a good place. You know what I mean? They're pulling together. The likes of Wood score, and he looks top drawer at the moment. You can't fault what he's doing. I always pronounce the centre back's name. Some Milikovic or something, whatever it is.
Milenkovic.
That's it. He's been class. You know what I mean? Gibbs White. Do you know what I mean? Most teams would probably take him in this sort of form. I don't mind these sort of clubs doing something like this. Do you know what I mean? It's nice to see. I know it's a bit of a snobby comment coming, but I've always seen Forest as a bit of a proper top flight football club. Do you know what I mean? I know that the other clubs might take offence to that, but I'm old school. I like your Sheffield Wednesdays, Nottingham Forests. Do you know what I mean? I'm from that era where they're at the old Barclays sort of lot for me. The Stan Collymores up front for Forest, bit before your time, Jake. Do you know what I mean? So seeing them do well, I quite like it. And after last year, whether they were in the right or in the wrong or not, don't forget the FA tried their hardest to get them down last season. Do you know what I mean? The Premier League tried very hard to get rid of them last year. Let's not pretend they didn't. They did. And they're rubbing it in their face this year a little bit. So, I'm interested to see if they tie it. Because, like I said, when you put so much effort and energy into it, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about the score, but I'm kind of assuming they haven't had a lot of injuries either. Because no. So it's just whether the second half of the season, how they'll probably fizz out a little bit. I think when Arsenal and Chelsea win their games in hand, they'll drop the fourth, I think I'm right in saying. So I would like to see them in Europe again. That would be. I think that'd be pretty cool for the old school followers of the game.
Absolutely, yeah. No, roll on Forest. I say it's the best and loudest ground in the league. By far, it's always a brilliant atmosphere there. They play some decent stuff. They have done. I mean, they've rode their luck to Premier League survival at points over the last couple of seasons, and they've really. I mean, we spoke to a Forest fan a little bit earlier on the season, and I think it was October time, and he said that we want to push on this year. I don't quite think they could have imagined being second just after Christmas as pushing on. Fair play to them, and I hope they stick it out and they stay as high up as they can. Everton, they've stuck out some goalless draws and got some points on the board and kept themselves going, but a bridge too far for them. Whenever I think of Everton now, I think of that rearranged Merseyside derby. When's it going to be? I'm thinking it'll be the last week of the season, Everton, Liverpool for the title. I'm just thinking that's going to be brilliant, but I don't know why that came into my head, but it did. Everton, Sean, any comment?
Just a bit of a funny side, aren't they? Like, I would have had that down as a probably one of those Sean Dyche ground out draws a little bit. I keep reading that Calvert-Lewin can speak to other clubs or something as well. Keeps being linked to everyone. I think he hasn't looked too bad. That's probably why, because he's in the transfer window a little bit. I spoke to I think I told you the other week. I sat and watched the Everton Man U game on the cruise ship with Evertonian, and he just said that Sean Dyche is the right man for now, and I can totally get that. They're just going to be a funny side. They're going to win an odd one. They'll draw one. They'll get stuff 2 or 3 games in a row, then they'll come back and win one, which will probably be enough come May. You know what I mean? Absolutely. I don't really see them changing. They'll probably pick up enough points at home to. I read the article already. I think Southampton are on 7 or 8 points, and they're already comparing the Derby's total. So I know that's only one team, but that's the sort of level of teams you're up against to try and stay up in the league this year. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
They'll do enough, and I think they got some sort of new owners coming in buying them or something like that. And I'm sure within 18 months they'll kick on probably with a new manager and try something else.
Quite possibly. Our final game we're going to cover before we have a little bit of a general chit chat about what's going on in the Premier League at the moment is, of course, the glorious West Ham 0, Liverpool 5. Look, I knew we were going to lose. It was quite obvious we were going to lose this game. It was just a case of how many. And I asked myself that at half time when it was 3-0. And as I sat through an arduous, pretty pointless second half, which piled on more pain. And I just sense there's a disconnect. Now, look, there's been a lot of anger and covering on social media over the last sort of 24 hours or so about the home atmosphere. There's been a lot of anger because yet again more Liverpool fans in the home end, and it's just been boiling up to a point of look, it's been simmering to a boiling point now of fans not happy with the home experience, and I corroborate that completely. And fans are tired of it. You know, there's people in their hundreds not going to renew next year, as it has been for the years gone by. And I think this game pretty much epitomises all of those people's viewpoints in that sense. We can accept losing to Liverpool, absolutely. They're the better side. They'll win the league pretty comfortably, I think. And look, the manner of the defeat, all the rest of it, but I can't see an identity. I haven't done all season. It's concerned me from minute one, and it concerns me going into 2025 now. I can't see a plan. I can't see an identity. Luckily, there's 3 worse teams than us. God knows how. That says more about the Premier League than it does us, because we have been pretty dreadful. We've papered over some cracks with some really, really lucky wins this year. You know, we should never have beaten Man United. We should never have got a point off Fulham. We should never have beaten Southampton on Thursday, right? And that's just 3 games I've reeled off there, which has picked us up 7 points that we maybe on another day wouldn't have got. Those 7 points, if you take those 7 points off, which isn't wildly out of the realms of possibility, puts us down to 15. We're then all of a sudden 17th, right? And that's just straight away. There's been other games where we've rode our luck as well. I cannot see how this moves forward. I cannot see how we improve. Tim Stein's apparently under pressure. He's built the slowest midfield in Premier League history. He's constructed a bench which is traumatic, to say the least. It's dreadful. It's painful, and I honestly, I'm getting pretty sick and tired of it, to be totally honest with you. He starts Paqueta every week when he's got Somerville, who's the slight shining light going forward. He'll start Paqueta every week. He'll start all these players and leave the likes of Somerville on the bench. I just don't understand it whatsoever. Doesn't start Todibo when you've got Mavropanos, who is just useless, right? He can't pass the ball forwards. He is utterly useless. You've got Todibo sat there on the bench, a better centre half. I can't get my head around it. Liverpool, brilliant. They were going to win. They won. Fair play to them, whatever. That's it. Sean?
I expect you've seen me comment on quite a few West Ham pages here and there. I've got views on it, but none of it adds up. And when you can't add it up, it's funny because the bigger picture tells me this. And you probably read my comment. Well, you're 14th in the league.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning of the season, I think we kind of agreed that you might be lower mid-table. I think we both sort of said probably there. Mm. The last 3 seasons, you've been 13th, 9th, and 14th. So again, you're about there. So I've got that. So that tells me, hang on a minute, that's kind of where West Ham are. I think I looked at your all combined Premier League history of league finishes since the Premier League started puts you 10th. So that's a bit above average where you are now. I'm not saying you should accept that and that's good enough. I'm just thinking, most mine sort of tells me, have they got a right to moan that much if you're about where you usually are and where you should be, okay? But on the other hand, I'm thinking, you've been drubbed quite a few times. You've let in 3, 4s and 5s 5 or 6 times this season, I think.
Yeah.
I watched you against Liverpool. I'll be honest. I thought Liverpool were nowhere near as good against you as they were against us in the week. They beat us 6-3, and I thought they were lethal against us. They looked in second gear against you, I thought. Another point, I remember saying probably start of the season, a month or 2 ago, these talented players you sign at West Ham, the ones that sort of come out, they're brilliant. Remember I said to you, the team like West Ham, it's not knocking West Ham. When you sign a player who looks really good for a few months, but no one else is really linked, I always wonder what the chinks in the armour are. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Alvarez, great for you last season, when this first season. Paqueta has been great for you. Kudos has been great for you. When you're up against it, like, they just look like a bunch of frauds a little bit to me. Do you know what I mean? Now, when I see chinks in the armour, I think, is this why no one else has gone for him? Is this why Man City didn't stump up the money for Paqueta? Is this why Alvarez looks half the player he did last season? That they didn't protect your defence was woeful at the weekend. We know it was. There was no protection. I was actually watching. I looked just my on Paqueta when you were going forward. Then Liverpool got it back. He was just trotting about. Kudos comes alive when he gets the ball, but sort of he reminds me at the moment of a player that's sort of doing it for himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're crying out for Somerville. I've covered Somerville, and I'll move on to your bench linked to this and your signings. I watched him at Leeds all last year, and and I said to you when you got him, he's a very much individual type of player who might take a while to get integrated to the team sort of ethic and all that. And I think that's probably why he's not starting him as much as some of you would like. Now, I get it, you get fed up with same shirts getting the games, but I think that's why he's not getting on. I looked at the rest of your bench. I know you said a few games that Solera midfield looked great. I've read it. People slate him and say he looks nowhere near good enough in the last couple of days.
Yeah, he's got worse the last few games.
Obviously, Souček gets slated 1 month by the fan base. The next minute he scores a few late goals and everyone likes him. He wasn't available. So I don't think this director of football you've got has built the best squad.
No.
Tadibo, obviously, rumour has it's fallen out big time with the manager. But the manager went free at the back and you didn't look any tighter. Do you know what I mean? Salah, with a back five, Salah was still getting acres of space and he had the easiest game of his life, I thought. So I can understand frustration. And this brings me to the bigger point, which I can totally relate to my own club. Although we've had better league finishes, so we expect probably European football more than what you maybe do. You just want to see good football and get as high as you can. When you're struggling, I notice a lot of people go back and moan about the atmosphere in the stadium. So when you're fed up with the football, you like the fan base likes to criticise the board. Do you know what I mean? That's inevitable. You criticise the board, it takes you straight back to the stadium and leaving at Upton Park. Okay, yeah. I can relate to that because I read it for my own club myself. Okay, because it was when we got to the stadium, it was described as a game changing stadium. Okay, so everyone's waiting for the game change. So I can get it. So when you're frustrated with the poor football, you tend to forget, like, oh, hang on, this is West Ham. We're used to us being about 10th or 11th, 12th, because that's roughly where West Ham have always been on the whole, bar 3 or 4, 5 good seasons in the last 20 years. But it builds the bigger picture. You get fed up with your club wasting money on wrong players, not even bad players, wrong players. Do you know what I mean? Like, you brought in, I'll even go as far, I know it's a bit harsh on him because he hasn't played a lot. Fulkrug, the striker. I watched him in the Euros come off the bench for Germany, and when you signed him, I thought, he's not suited to the Premier League in 2024. In my opinion, I might be proved wrong. I'm not a scout. I'm not working for a Premier League club. How he gets around the field, I'm thinking, well, he's like Chris Wood, so he might come good. Do you know what I mean? But I can see it. Like, you're thinking, hang on a minute, we've just spent 150 quid for a day out at a stadium we don't really like, an atmosphere that's piss poor. Do you know what I mean? We got Liverpool fans sat amongst us. You look at the Tottenham goal that Wolves scored at the weekend. Bear in mind, a Korean scored for them. You got 20 Korean fans sat behind in the Tottenham end, jumping up, cheering the goal because the Koreans scored. Do you know what I mean? That's modern football. It's the modern when these teams have got these modern stadiums. It's a massive pitfall, and when the football goes to pieces, it's one of the first things we think of. So I do get the unhappiness, and I know you don't like the manager, but I think it's clearly not all about him, is it?
No, it's not. Look, I mean, a lot of the anger and frustration that has stemmed over the last 24 hours has come back to when we sat there before we moved to the stadium. Karen Brady sat there and said, we'll have world-class football in a world-class stadium. Well, currently we've got neither, quite frankly, because that stadium is definitely not world-class for football terms, and we're definitely not watching world-class football. Well, we are when teams come and batter us. That's the only world-classness about it. And yeah, but when things take a turn on the pitch, it goes, as you rightly say, back to that. But yeah, I think we've both had a good little ranting session there. We will leave it there. Thank you very much, everybody, for getting involved in the chat. Have a very happy New Year, Sean, and I wish you a very prosperous 2025.
Yeah, and yourself, mate. Let's see what it brings. Who knows?
Let's hope it's a bit flipping better, shall we? But after all that we've just discussed there, West Ham were awful. You're only a point above us, Sean. What the hell's going on?
We are. What? It's been a funny season. Like,
yeah.
We both agreed that you're probably roughly where West Ham would be at the end of the season, roughly at the moment. There's many teams in the league which are way higher than we expected, and there's quite a few way lower than we expected. So if you're going to take anything from this, you're about par where we thought you'd be at the moment. So I know the football's not good, and you're letting in a hatful, but things could be a lot worse because you're not doing as bad as probably a lot of you think. I don't think anyway.
Well, there we go. From me, come on, Lions. We will see you soon. We're here on West Ham. We've got Man City next weekend. That could be absolutely anything. We'll see you in the build-up to that very soon. Until then, thank you very much and goodbye.